Hey guys, this is Megan from You Go To Be Kidding. This week I wanted to talk about some things we've learned. This week marks 4 years on our homestead, and so I have 4 tips that have kept us going and kept us from getting burned out. Joel Salatin says that there's a 6-year homestead cycle, 2 years to get in, 2 years to get completely overwhelmed and burned out, and then 2 years to sell out. So I thought it would be helpful that we are here at the end of year 4 when so often there's burnout, and we've made it. We've made it through. We're not burned out. We're not overwhelmed. And we've learned some stuff to get here. It wasn't super straightforward. It's not like this has been a walk in the park the whole time, but I feel like we've learned some valuable tips, and hopefully we can share that with you. So if you are at the beginning of your homestead journey or working towards it, I hope that it is helpful to kind of hear from someone in the trenches on what it's taken to get here, and those 4 tips to help you keep going. So all these tips really are intertwined and go together well, so they can really go in any order. But tip number 1, I think, is definitely don't get too many things too quickly. So moving to a homestead, there's so much going on. Not only is there livestock to consider or a garden to consider, but then there's all the other things. Usually homesteads often include a whole list of chores for the house, whether that's improvements or upgrades, or even just plain old yard work and yard maintenance. It can be a lot and a huge difference from a normal neighborhood home. And so don't get too into all these different ventures without giving yourself a chance for the learning curve. Learning any new thing, even if it is just learning how often you're going to need to mow a lot of acres, or if it's how to preserve the harvest, how to grow things in a garden, how to care for livestock. What do you do when something gets sick? What kind of feed do you need for your animals? It's a huge learning curve. And so I just encourage to get an animal at a time, move slowly, and don't get too excited. Often that can actually backfire if you get too many things. So that's tip 1. Don't do too much too quickly. Realize that there is a limit to your own energy and strength. There should definitely be a limit to your finances. I love that Sean and Beth Doherty always talk about it's helpful to not have the finances to fix things, because it makes you be more creative and often actually helps you solve the problem in a better way than trying to just throw money at stuff. So anyway, that's tip number 1, is don't do too much too soon. That can be really tough. Tip number 2 is to look for ways to improve your systems. That can be fencing and chargers if you're using electric. It can be water and how you get it. It could be how you move your animals and how you manage things. And that takes time to learn too. That's part of really tip 1 and the learning curve, is you have to figure out how to get these animals something every day. You can't leave them. You can't get sick of them. You can't just ignore their needs. And so dealing with one group at a time is a really wise way to help figure it out. For us, we use electric netting. There's some here. Let's see if I can turn. There we go. We've got the boy goats in electric nets. And so part of that for us has been be patient to add more fences so it's easier to move them. We started with 2 fences, one that they were in and one that they moved to. And now we have many. Each year as we sold baby goats, we would buy more fences. And so things like that, but being willing to be patient and not trying to come into a homestead and buy 10 electric nets and have that huge cost up front before you even know if you like goats at all. So work on improving your systems, getting water out to your animals easier than having to haul it, figuring out how you're going to milk your animals and what's an efficient way to get them where you need. All those types of things are a huge part of your homestead, and spending specific time actually thinking through and planning those things out is going to make a huge difference. Tip number 3 is make sure you have somebody on your team. So for me, that's my husband Damien and our kids, but having a husband who is supportive. Now he works an off-farm job, and he is all in when he gets home. He is helping us here on the farm. He is doing more than his fair share of especially the terrible jobs around here. And I don't know how we do it without him. But we also have the kids on our team. They help us with chores, and they're part of it. This is what our family does. It's our family culture, and that's huge. But I know that that's not, not everybody is married who's doing this. So find somebody that you can share the wins and the losses with. This can get lonely. It is hard work, and it is day in and day out. And without that community, without people to share, especially the losses, but even to celebrate the victories, you need somebody in your corner who is going to cheer you on and encourage you and help lift you up. And so that could be a best friend, that could be a family member, that could be a spouse. But don't get into this homesteading thing thinking you can do it alone. I think that is a recipe for disaster. We need people. God made us to need community. Like, we need others in our corner. I am so thankful not only for my husband, who is a great support, but I do have a group of local women that we meet together and we encourage each other, because sometimes stuff happens and it is rough, or sometimes we're just tired or injured or sick and we just need help. And also that means we have help. Sometimes we need to, go on vacation or whatever, and we have a group of women that we can help each other out, and even just go water chickens and whatever they need. So find community, find people. If you don't know of it in your area, just start it. Just find one friend that is even remotely interested in a garden or learning how to can, or at least is a good enough friend to listen to you, and invite them over for dinner and see if you can make your group bigger. That's all we've been doing for a couple years now, and it has made all the difference. So community is definitely tip number 3. Lastly is tip number 4. This is the one that I feel like has been the hardest, but the most important, and that is flexibility and being willing to change. So for us, that has meant everything from admitting that the animals we had on our farm were not working for us, and being willing to move those on to different homes, being willing to admit that we had too much going on and downsize, or wait on different animals. It's also just being flexible in the day-to-day. And some good examples of this, we got a donkey at the beginning. She was awesome, but she was just not a good fit for us, mostly experience-wise. It was an example of getting too much too soon. I don't have any experience with equines, and we had little kids, and it became a safety issue. And admitting defeat was really hard on my pride. And I'm glad for that experience that I had to suck it up and say, nope, I don't know what I'm doing, and I need to let her go somewhere else. Being flexible, like all this week that our goats refused to stay in their fence. We had been suffering a drought. It did rain, so our girl goats are staying where they belong, but it is also just about rut. And so our boy goat is refusing to stay where he belongs, and I'm not even sure how he's getting out. But being flexible every morning when I wake up and see him out in the yard, I can choose to get really angry and frustrated about that, or I can choose to just embrace that, hey, farm animals are not robots or machines. Obviously he needs something, whether even that's just a physical fence to keep him in for this time of year. We're going to have to reevaluate whether we make him a dry lot type area to keep him locked up better. And that's just part of it. Things are always changing. What systems we have that we think are working may not be. We've done meat chickens for 4 years now, and each year has looked different as we've changed what we are capable of and our skill sets and just what we're too tired to do. And so actually the biggest one here lately was this year we decided to give up our sheep. We had sheep and goats, and the sheep were for meat, and we realized that it was just not working. It was too many things for our farm, and so we sold them, and that has been a huge blessing. So instead of looking at it as like, oh no, we failed or we had to give up on something, we're looking at it from the standpoint of how can we be wise with the resource of our time and energy and physical limits. And sometimes that means giving stuff up. And that can be really hard. But I'm thankful have a partner to do it with. Damien and I work really well together. I love having him here. I love doing this together with him, and that's part of this, doing it as a family. That's part of it. Raising food that matters, and raising food so we can feed others well is a pretty awesome thing to be doing. All right, so those are my 4 tips for the first 4 years of homesteading. I hope that those are helpful to you, that they've made you think of something you haven't thought of before, or encouraged you to make a change that needed to be done. But we have really enjoyed this experience. It has been hard, it has been sad, and it has been exciting and joyous, and it's been worth it. So we have, we've had to work hard, but we enjoy the process, and we hope that this has encouraged you in some way. So if you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear them. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.